Hi and welcome. I'm Mich Bondesio, and this is Creating Cadence, a podcast about what it really takes to work well and live well at a cadence that's more sustainable for us, despite this fast-paced world we live in. I help high-performing founders, creatively minded entrepreneurs, and purpose-driven business owners who want to make an impact without sacrificing themselves to burnout and overwork. I'm also the author of The Cadence Effect and write more about ways to create cadence over on Substack. Creating Cadence is about reimagining work and challenging outdated approaches, exploring ideas around pace, performance, productivity, creativity, regenerative business, digital well-being, and the future of work. Think of it as your regular dose of insight and inspiration to help you build a meaningful work life with a rhythm that's more intentional, more effective, and more regenerative. Whether you're listening on your commute, on a walk, or in between tasks, thanks for tuning in. This is episode 88, the 5th of season 14, published in October, but the interview was recorded in early September 2025. Pardon my scratchy voice as I record this intro, I have a bit of a cold this week. So the theme for this season is rewriting the rules of work, because the world of work is changing rapidly, and it's up to us as founders and leaders to shape that change more consciously, not just for profit, but for people and planet too. In episodes 84 to 87, I've looked at rewriting the rules of work through the lens of productivity, leadership, and business models that replenish. Now we move on to interviews related to these topics. And in today's episode, I'm chatting with Kevin Karaca, a story and messaging strategist, about how story, mindfulness, and connection can help us rewrite the rules of work. But first, a quick news update from me. So last week I attended a Regenerate Cumbria event, and I don't know how to describe it other than to say it was an exceptional experience. It took place right on Lake Windermere in the Lake District, and with the autumn leaves turning, the colours, energy and the feeling of the place were just beautiful. There were well-curated, impactful and nourishing discussions about everything from shaping a future-fit economy to how we better support people, place and planet through the lens of business, tourism, land recovery, innovation, investment and responsible carbon usage. It was a private capsule event with less than 50 people, so we got to chat really deeply about the topics of the day. And the experience has given me so much food for thought, and there's some research that I'd like to do and some ideas that I want to pursue as part of my own journey in regenerative business practices. So my cup is feeling full because I've also just hosted the final session of the Cadence Masterclass Autumn Series, and my heart is filled with wonderful feedback that I've received from participants. This series covered how to reclaim focus and energy as a high-achieving founder, how to create time for strategy, creativity, and better decisions, and how to build for smarter growth without burning out. Burnout is something we cannot ignore, especially given how fractious and uncertain our world is at the moment. So these topics of these sessions really resonated with the audience who attended. The next Cadence Masterclass series will only happen in spring of 2026, but if you're interested in doing something with me before then, the next thing on my dance card is the Cadence Catalyst, which is an 8-week strategic mastermind for high-achieving strivers. You have the opportunity to join a curated peer group of successful entrepreneurs, creative thinking founders, and conscious leaders for an 8-week flexible online journey. It's been designed to help you reset how you work, lead, and live. And during these live sessions, we'll look at building more regenerative working practices that will help you achieve more sustainable success and future-proof your business. The next Cadence Catalyst starts in late January 2026. There are only 8 spaces available per cohort, and you can register your interest at cadence.kit.com/cadence-catalyst. I'll put the link to that in the show notes. So that's what's happening with me. Now onto the interview for this episode, which is with Kevin Karaca. Kevin Karaca is an anthropologist by training and a mindfulness teacher and story and messaging strategist by trade. Kevin has spent a lifetime exploring the stories we live by, the ones we inherit, the ones that keep us stuck, and the ones that set us free. Through his consultancy, The House Outside, he helps people, brands, and organizations use story to create positive environmental and social change. He also co-founded Folc, spelled F-O-L-C, a community-rooted social enterprise that helps people reduce stress, find clarity, and reconnect with what matters. Folc has a studio in Chesterfield, Derbyshire in the UK, and is also launching online too. Recently, Kevin has also launched something called the Cult of Curiosity. It's a small community of curious souls that come together and explore how to relight a sense of wonder and exploration into work and life. Everything in Kevin's life comes back to empowering people, challenging power, and promoting change. In this episode, Kevin shares his philosophy about work and life, and how through story and intention we can create systems, cultures, and habits that are regenerative rather than draining. This is a lovely, soft conversation about a very powerful topic, because storytelling is one of the most powerful tools we have for behaviour change and meaningful leadership. If you're ready to work and lead in a way that brings more connection, purpose, and energy, then this episode offers thoughtful inspiration and some practical takeaways. Let's dive in. So hi, Kevin. Welcome to the show. It's lovely to have you here.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Excellent. So a bit of context, we met last year at the Lancashire B Corp Festival at the Wellbeing Farm, and that's where we discovered that we have the Do lectures in common. And I also bumped into you later that year at the Kendall Mountain Festival. And then this year I got to sit in on a super helpful workshop that you held on behaviour change that you ran at this year's B Corp Festival. So you're doing a variety of really interesting things right now in the realms of storytelling and mindfulness and curiosity and connection. And we will dive deeper on what all of that means. But first, tell us more about where you find yourself in this moment in time.
It has been interesting how we've got so many commonalities in our lives and where we've popped up over the last couple of years. And I think that's the place I'm at right now, is really this place of exploration and curiosity and diving into what is this place we call Earth? What is this thing we call life? What does it mean to go through it with openness, with curiosity, with this sense of wonder? So I guess that's where I'm at in a very high level sense.
Fantastic. And I find what you're saying very relatable. And a lot of people I'm speaking to are in this place as well, with everything that's the state of flux that we're experiencing in the world at the moment. People are questioning things. They are curious about finding a different way through. So one of the things that you do is Folc Studio, which you and your now wife co-founded. And you run mindfulness sessions, and your wife is a yoga teacher, I see. So I'm presuming that you must already have several robust well-being practices that you integrate into your daily routines. Talk us through how you personally support yourself to help manage your stress and be more creative and productive. And do you have any challenges?
Absolutely. I mean, to frame the context for anyone listening is a bit of an understanding of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right. I co-founded Folk with my now wife. I run a consultancy and I run a project called the Cult of Curiosity, which I'm sure we'll come on to at one point. We also have a dog. We've also got a 100-year plus terraced house, which needs a lot of work. And this year has been that year of marriages in our lives. So starting with ours, got 5 weddings this year.
Wow.
Ending this month, starting in April. So this year has been incredibly busy, and it's become even more important to manage stress, to hold myself accountable to some extent for what life is at the moment. What's helped me? What are those habits? I mean, the one that stuck with me for the longest is mindfulness. And that sounds a bit cliche, and mindfulness has been in the news for the last 10 or so years. And it's not necessarily meditation for me. It's much more about those informal practices, those moments where I make tea or coffee and I just sit with that rather than thinking about the email I need to reply to. It's actually just going and making tea or doing the dishes in the evening. We don't have a dishwasher, and I actually cherish that moment every day where I can sit and do the dishes. So those informal moments throughout the day where I just am very deliberately present really help me. I mentioned we've got a dog. Walking the dog, we give him maybe half hour, 40 minutes every morning. Sometimes do an hour walk in the evening as well. And just that time to allow my mind to process and file away all the stuff that I've been working on is hugely important. I'm a huge cold shower fan.
Okay.
I mean, fan is maybe too strong a word. They're not enjoyable, but I find that they really invigorate me. And then like systems, just having systems in place to make sure things happen or that I'm reminded of things. I use a few different apps to make sure that there's something reliable I can lean on to remember the stuff I need to remember, because our mind's not made for remembering stuff.
Well, not to the degree we're expected to today,
Yeah,
at least.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I love that mention of noticing and being present and how you can find it in what people may think of as the most mundane activities, like washing the dishes. I find that very meditative, so I can completely relate to what you're saying. And I think, being forced to get outdoors because of your dog, so many benefits there for your health, your well-being, for being able to process ideas, let things percolate. There's a whole lot of research and studies around how our brain waves slow down to the pace of our walking and how that has a really kind of positive benefit. Well, it creates benefits for our brain on lots of levels. So I love that you do that. So part of why I wanted you to be on this season's podcast is because of this theme that I'm covering this season, which is all around rewriting the rules of work. And I've been looking at it through the lens of three key perspectives: that of building productivity systems that replenish, reimagining leadership styles that embrace well-being, and designing businesses for a changing planet. And the work that you do in your three areas, it straddles all three of those topics. So from your perspective, why is it important that you think we should rewrite the rules of work in these three areas of leadership, productivity, and business? And do you have any specific suggestions on how we might do that based on what you're doing?
I think this theme and this idea is wonderfully fascinating. When you told me about it, my mind just went mad with with ideas, and I was like, "Oh, it's just such a fascinating idea that the chief energy officer as a concept is really really interesting." Before I answer, maybe it's useful to share the way I see the world
Hmm.
and to just frame the answer I want to give. And it starts with maybe a bit of a challenge to the idea. And it's to me, there is no work versus life.
Hmm.
There's just life. We are here living always. I'm a firm believer that how we do something is how we do everything. And so when thinking about work, whether it's paid or unpaid work, I think that bleeds into all areas of our lives. And similarly, when we do the non-work stuff, whether eating, exercising, play, whatever, that impacts how we work.
Hmm.
I don't recycle at home, but not recycle in the office, but as a very banal example. So for me, when I think about work and coming at it from that perspective of the work I choose to do, our friend through the Do Network, James Victoria, has a wonderful line of "Your work is a gift."
Hmm.
And I find a lot of power in that. And that sort of brings me to this second view, which is that life should be filled with meaning. We're social beings. One of the main ways we create meaning is through these human relationships we have, through the human interactions we have. I'm an anthropologist by training, and anthropology talks about reciprocity as one of those sort of like early ideas that it as a discipline came across and studied. This idea that we give and receive from each other, and that's how we form relationships. And I think that's huge. And something we often forget is that as people, we're here to share moments, to share our life with others, whether that's words like a conversation like this, whether
Hmm.
that's objects when we gift something to someone, whether it's money through a business relationship, or whether it's our time. And time is valuable, right? And this is where we come back to work, or life, as I put it. We're giving our time to our work, so it's important, it should matter. So for me, the question is not necessarily just about rewriting the rules of work, but I'll answer it in that framing anyway. It's about being intentional about how we spend our time, whether that's in non-work or at work, creating a life worth living, a life of meaning, happiness, kindness, joy, something that is safe, is fulfilling, is fun, and is filled with love. For me, that's why it's important to rewrite these rules of work so that we can create those conditions for us to thrive in as humans.
I think that's beautiful. I love this idea of your whole self because that is what we are. We don't separate who we are at home and who we are at work. What we feel at home, we bring to work, and what happens at work, we take home. And embracing that kind of cohesive, holistic is an overused word, but that holistic part of ourselves, everything, what you talk about, bringing meaning into it, it's so important purpose in terms of the work that we do, the outputs we create, the meaning that has for us and for the people that we are connected with. And that idea of reciprocity is so powerful and so important. And very often we forget about that in a business or work context, is that everything we do has an impact on everybody around us. And likewise.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is why the work that you do is so important as well. This idea of bringing intention into our work, of creating. I love the idea of motion that you talk about. We're constantly in motion, and we should be. Static things are often dead things. Life is about moving. So how do we make that intentional? How do we make that sustainable? To me, sustainable is not necessarily environmental sense, but in terms of long lasting and in a way that doesn't deplete us of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it very much is rooted in a form of systems change, because our typical systems aren't geared for that idea of more sustainable working practices that enable us to thrive, as you were talking about earlier.
Absolutely. And the really interesting thing for me about systems is that a system is a story. It's a story we've made up to convince ourselves, maybe delude ourselves, that we should do things in a certain way. Work is a story, culture is a story, change is a story, sustainability is a story. We live our life through story. We are the main character in our story, and that's how we see the world. And like, that's great. That's actually a really beautiful thing. We get to share our story with other people. They get to resonate with our story when we tell them about a breakup, or we tell them about joy, or whatever it might be. To bring it back round, the beauty of stories is that they're made up. Even the factual ones are made up to some extent. There are half truths, different perspectives, multiple versions of the same story. And so we get to choose the meaning behind them. We get to choose what they are. And so changing our working life, rewriting those rules around how we show up to work, is as simple as changing the story we tell about what work is.
I love that. And that brings me to something that I spotted on your website, The House Outside, where you said people want to do the right thing, but often they're left guessing. And in the context of these rules, they've been imposed on us, or, programmed into us for so long that we don't know another way. But it takes a little bit of courage and the right types of stories to captivate our imagination and to give us the courage to make that change. And so I love what you are speaking about there in terms of the power of story and how it underpins almost everything in terms of the change we make or how we live.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I think about behavior change, I think it's a fascinating subject. I mean, I came onto the area of behavioral science, psychology, behavior change from a purely selfish perspective of wanting to make my life better. But through over time and learning about it, I became more and more convinced is maybe the wrong word, but I could see more and more how relevant it is to social change, to societal change. That there's a fascinating guy in the States, a guy called BJ Fogg,
Yep.
who you've come across.
I've done his little Tiny Habits course. He's brilliant.
Yeah, so his Tiny Habits course is great. His Tiny Habits book is great.
I have it here.
You've got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Fogg behavior model is fascinating, and it was a real unlock for me, and I think it has been for many people who have come across his work, that actually to change a behavior, we just need three things. We need the motivation to do it. We need to be able to do it, whether that's from a time perspective, a routine perspective, a financial perspective, a physical ability, mental ability, whatever that is. And we need to be reminded to do it. And so when I say it, people want to do the right thing, but they're often not able to, or they don't do. It's because one of those things is missing. We might forget to. I know plenty of people who recycle but put the wrong things in the recycling bin. And it's like, okay, well, that's an easy fix, really. We just need to prompt people what goes in the recycling bins. There's so many easy solutions out there to the wider social problems we have, or the systems we've created are reinforcing, but it's just a matter of thinking about it for a little bit.
That's right. To come out of our autopilot mode into a little bit more
Yes.
intentional, conscious mode. I agree 100%. Well, that brings me on to talking more about cadence. The Creating Cadence podcast is about how we create rhythm and maintain momentum in our lives and business. And how does what you do in your various projects help your clients and customers to manage their pace, to keep moving forward, to make these changes as you were talking about just now?
It's a really powerful question to consider, even just for me while I was thinking about it and do think about it now. I think it's a really interesting question, but also for anyone in their lives, it's an interesting question of, well, how do I create the steady pace in my life so I'm not going through these peaks and valleys, so I'm not constantly firefighting or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Again, multiple hats I wear. So let me maybe answer it through those as a filter.
Yes, do.
The work we do at Folc, so Folc Studio is a physical space we run in Chesterfield, where me and my wife currently live. Though we're soon bringing it online and starting to do new things. So that's something that's quite exciting, maybe towards the end of this year. But the work we do here is really on helping people connect with themselves, to see, to understand, to become more aware of the story they are living by. That connection to self is huge. Whether it's just, I mean, my wife's a somatic coach, so she really helps people connect with their body and understand what's going on. What's this thing I'm feeling? And it's surprising how often we feel something but can't name what we feel. I mean, there's a fantastic app called How We Feel, which I've been using for, I think, just over 500 days now.
Congratulations.
Which is quite funny actually when you look at it and go, wow, that's a long time. But it asks me to check in at 3 random points throughout the day and it gives me this mood sort of matrix where I have to name the feeling I'm feeling. And just that practice is huge to build your emotional literacy and your self literacy, if that's
Mm-hmm.
a thing, and go, oh wow, okay, I didn't realize I'm not actually feeling anxious. I thought it was anxious, but it's actually I just feel a bit jittery. Why is that? Oh, probably because I've had 4 cups of coffee or whatever it is, right? So this is what we're helping people to do at Folk, is really use movement. So we run yoga classes, Pilates classes, various workshops and circles and lots of different things to build that connection with themselves, to create a container in which we can explore our emotions and process what's going on in our lives,
Mm-hmm.
to move from this reactive autopilot state to a more proactive, intentional place.
It's so vital because we don't have an inbuilt stress management system. We have to learn how to release that so that we can reconnect with ourselves. So I love that you're integrating the somatic elements to help people do that.
Yeah, yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And we've lost teaching that to other young people as well.
Good point.
I remember when I first came across mindfulness, I went to my mum, who was a teacher, and she introduced it to her deputy head. And a year later, they were teaching it in school. And it was one of those things where I've always kept track of how that went. And she could see the difference in the students. They all could. Just this ability to self-regulate, self-control, because they can see that, oh, I'm angry at this other kid for, I don't know, stealing the football. I don't have to go over and punch them. I can just sit with that anger and work through it a different way.
So true. I mean, our reliance on digital connection is affecting our ability to connect with ourselves and respond in better ways. And it starts at school. I think that's where those lessons need to start. So that's an excellent point you've made.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about how you help people move forward with the house outside work that you do.
So the house outside is my consulting practice where the focus is on creating this meaning. It's on creating connection between brands and an audience, whether that's a business brand or a personal brand. Firstly, I work with individuals and broader organizations. For me, it again comes back to this idea of story. It's how do we tell a story, or maybe even find our story, often is the case, and tell it in a way that means something to other people so that they come along on that journey too. For example, a couple of years ago, I worked with a coffee company called Kickback Coffee, who are just south of Manchester. Fantastic coffee. I'm not biased, but we do drink their coffee.
Okay.
And it was to help. Uh, they've been going for a few years, and it was to help reframe who they are. And as we spoke, as I spoke with Alex, the founder, and their brand team, and their brand team was also all the other teams, the startup phase, it became clear they're not a coffee roastery. They're an adventure company. They sell adventure, and it's that their role in this world was to help fuel people's adventure.
Oh, fantastic.
And over the last 2 years, I mean, since we did that work, they've exploded. I'm not taking all the credit for that at all, but that they've exploded and they've become a community of walkers, of cyclists, of mountain bikers, of whoever. They run monthly. They used to be monthly rambles out of their roastery. Easy walks. I've been on them, and it's just a beautiful time to go and chat. They run cycle events. They collaborate with other local businesses. They've done like brewery to brewery runs, coffee brewery to beer brewery runs to, and it's this idea of adventure that sits underneath everything that they do. And this is the sort of powerful thing that a story has. It moves business, it moves an idea from just being a product or a service or purely an idea into something people can relate to, connect to, explore together, maybe adopt and weave into their lives.
I love that. I love the idea of the connecting people through adventure and building community, finding your people in that way.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm bored of talking about AI, but as AI comes into the world, into our lives, and becomes even more prevalent, the the thing I keep coming back to is what does the world become if we outsource everything to AI? I mean, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, this idea of reciprocity, of human connection,
Hmm.
of meaning. If it's a robot, if you've got WhatsApp and you ask AI to write the reply to you, and the other person just asks AI to write the reply to you, is that two people talking?
No.
I, we end up losing that. And so, yes, absolutely, bringing people together. It moved Kickback for sure, but I can see it with other brands and the work we do at Folc as well. Moves it beyond just a product to a vessel for human connection.
I think it's really important because very often in business, we forget that it's the people behind the business that we buy from. It isn't just the product. People buy from people that they know, like, and trust. And how
Yeah,
you gain that trust is through storytelling in a way that captivates and attracts and helps people see that you're my people.
yeah.
You're who I want to connect with. So that's so important. So you were talking about folk and how that helps people connect with themselves, and with the work you do at House Outside that helps brands and organizations and individuals connect with others.
Mm.
And then you also have this new project called The Cult of Curiosity. So tell us a bit about that.
The cult of curiosity is when I came up with it, I was like, this idea should not work. It sits at the nexus between the two things we've spoken about already.
Mm-hmm.
It's a project that specifically is working with creatives, founders, change makers, solopreneurs, maybe business leaders as well, if they feel that way inclined, to sort of rekindle that spark inside, that spark of curiosity, clearly, of wonder, of exploration, of creativity. It's a place to come and sort of relight that fire, that passion that drives the work we choose to do.
Mm-hmm.
We started on the 1st of September, and this is our first month going. So it is a brand new project. Limited to 25 people. I think we're at 23. We had 23 people join, and it was via application. I had a fairly strict parameters around who I wanted to join and
Mm-hmm.
on what they were seeking. There were a few people who I was like, that was maybe not right, but in the future, let's have a chat again. It's bringing together these elements of story, of mindfulness, of creativity, of curiosity, and trying to help people, mostly in this work environment, in this professional context, to be more curious about what's going on in that part of their life. what does it mean to go into a client meeting and maybe not think that because you're the consultant, you have to be the expert? What could that look like?
Yeah.
To say, I don't know, let's find out together. And how does that give you the permission to move from this stressed state, this state of needing to perform to some extent, into a place where you can be more creative in the work you deliver, and also deliver better outcomes from that.
Yeah. Now, I noticed on your website you cited a whole lot of benefits to this exploration around curiosity, like less stress, better mental health, improved focus, emotional regulation, and how you can develop better relationships and, improve your self-awareness and so on. And this is a really important thing that you're saying. When we are so stressed by this need to perform and this need to know everything all the time, we can't function properly. We can't be creative. We can't actually be at our best because it locks us down. It shuts all those things down. And so things like the idea of play, the idea of being curious, experimentation, it's something I often advocate for in the work that I do. And it's how I treat all of my projects as well, as an experiment. And it's exactly what you said at the beginning. I wasn't sure this idea was going to work, but we've done it. And you've got 23 very loyal, interested people who are involved. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, we have some great conversations. So we meet weekly on a Monday morning, so starting the week right. And we explore a topic, we do a short meditation, then we have a conversation. And it's that moment, it's the conversation moment where we learn and we find out new things, either about ourselves or about other people. And we might go, oh, I'm not the only one who thinks that, because this person over here has shared this idea and I feel that way too about this thing. Or we might go, oh, that's really interesting, they experienced that, but they approach the solution in a different way to me, maybe I should give that a go. And it's this element that I find the most interesting around it. We've got a WhatsApp group where people are throwing ideas out, and it's really exciting.
Well, that's fantastic. I think, two heads are better than one. Very much so for people who work on their own. They need that kind of board that you can't afford, the tribe of mentors and peers who can help shed light on maybe developing things in a different way. So I think that's fab, and I'm wishing you all the best with that project. So moving on to our final question, Kevin, do you have any words of advice or key takeaways that you want to share with listeners based on your journey through life and work so far?
Yeah, the one lesson I wish I'd learned earlier is to embrace discomfort. I mentioned cold showers earlier. That's a great way to practice it, but not for everyone. Mark Shaler, again, a mutual friend of ours,
Yes.
me and him, I was really struggling with hay fever this year. And he was like, oh, I use stinging nettles every morning. And so I practiced stinging
Really?
myself with nettles when I was walking the dog. We've got loads near us. And actually, it's not that bad. I think the first time was a bit like, oh, this is going to be annoying. But within 10 seconds, I was like, it's just a bit of an itch on my arm. And by the time I got home, it was gone. And my hay fever was noticeably better. Not gone, but better. So yeah, embracing discomfort. So for me, that might be listening to someone else's opinion where that differs from my own, a hugely important topic at this moment in time, politically, globally. It might be embracing the discomfort of sharing your story to an audience without knowing what they're going to say, what they're going to think about it. This idea of embracing discomfort for me is about embracing the discomfort of being me, of being vulnerable enough to be my true self, my authentic self. Both overused terms, but they're the best terms we have, I think. The story I live, the story you live, is no less impressive than anyone else's. It doesn't mean anything less than anyone else's. And so our job as a human is to tell it, is to go out there and share our point of view, share it kindly, but share it to uncover the things that matter and stand for them. Again, I heard it first from Mark, but I don't think it's his words. There's a phrase, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Yeah.
And it's so true. Our story has made us who we are. Let's find out what matters to us and tell people about it, because that's the only tool we have to well, it's not the only tool. That's not true. It's the best tool we have to get people to listen and care and come on that journey with us.
So true, and very powerful suggestions there. And I think, this is part of it. We're terrified of sticking our head up over the fence because we feel we're different. But if we do, what we'll realize is there's so many others out there who are exactly like us, who need to feel that sense of belonging. And so the benefits outweigh the fear in terms of not doing it. So, I think what you're advocating for is spot on, to step beyond the discomfort.
Absolutely, yeah. The James Joyce quote, which is not exactly these words, it's something like, in the particular lies the universal. This idea that in one experience lies all experience.
That's lovely. Lovely. Thank you so much. All right, so I will share the various things that you've referenced. I'll share links to that in the show notes. But where can people specifically find you online as well?
So LinkedIn is the best place to find me. I'm relatively active on LinkedIn, and I write a weekly newsletter called How Change Works, where we dive into a lot of the stuff we've spoken about today, really, but mostly storytelling, behavioral strategy. It's all focused around doing business for good, whether that's social good or environmental good. So I'll make sure you've got the link to share that as well.
Fantastic. I've really enjoyed chatting with you today, Kevin. Thanks so much for your super insights.
Thanks for having me, Mich. It's been a joy and fascinating conversation. Thanks.
It's my pleasure. What a wonderful conversation with Kevin. His ideas stayed with me for a long time after we chatted, particularly this notion of not separating work and life, of seeing just life. Another idea that resonated is that when we can approach everything we do as our whole self, how that enables us to be more mindful and intentional about our choices, our actions, and how we communicate our needs and find meaning in the world. And in the context of rewriting the rules of work, that translates to building the systems and habits and routines into our days that help us to be our whole selves across the multiple layers in our lives. Thanks so much for listening. I'll be back soon with the next interview for this season. But before you go, a few quick notes. If you found this episode helpful, please like or rate the podcast wherever you listen to it. It helps others to find us. For deeper dives into building a more conscious business, subscribe to my Substack at creatingcadence.substack.com. You'll find out more about my work at creatingcadence.co, and you can grab a copy of my book at thecadenceeffect.com. So until next time, keep moving forwards with courage, curiosity, and cadence. Bye for now.